Unreliable employees like you don't deserve a place here. You're fired. We've already cleared out your desk. The words glowed on my phone screen, cruel and sharp as a scalpel. I blinked twice, thinking the morphine haze was making me see things. But no, the message was real. My boss, Edward Collins, had just ended my career with a single text while I was lying in a hospital bed, stitches still fresh from surgery. My name is Melissa Carter. I'm 36 years old, and until that moment, I was senior client director at Hallstrom Analytics, a Chicago-based financial consulting firm. I had spent the last 7 years building that division. Late nights, cross-country flights, and missed holidays, all to secure multi-million-dollar clients who kept our company relevant in a crowded market. And now, in the dimly lit ward of St. Mary's Hospital, I was discarded like a broken tool. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Not from the surgery or the pain in my abdomen, but from the sheer humiliation. My chest tightened, and I felt tears press against my eyes. How could he do this now when I was most vulnerable? My family was in the waiting room, worried sick. My body was fragile. And Edward had chosen this exact moment to cut me off. I was about to turn the screen face down when I heard a low chuckle from the bed beside me. The man there had been wheeled in less than an hour earlier, pale but calm, his left arm hooked to an IV. He tilted his head toward me. Bad news? His voice was gravelly, but there was a trace of humor beneath it. I turned slightly, squinting at him through the dull hospital light. He was older, maybe in his mid-50s, with silver at his temples, and a face that looked both tired and sharp at the same time. I had noticed his admission papers earlier when the nurse left them briefly at the foot of his bed. Daniel Whitmore. The name had triggered something in my memory, but the drugs had dulled my recall. I just got fired, I whispered, my throat raw. From a hospital bed? His brow furrowed, then he gave a short laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. That takes a special kind of cruelty. I tilted the phone toward him so he could see the message. His gaze flicked over it once, twice. Then his lips curled into something between sympathy and recognition. Well, he said slowly, I thought this stay couldn't get any more interesting. The way he spoke, measured, confident, snapped something in my memory. I had seen his photo in Forbes. Daniel Whitmore, CEO of Arcus Partners, the very firm that had been our fiercest competitor for a decade. His company had been circling our client base for years, hungry to expand into sectors we dominated. And now here he was, in the bed next to mine, watching my boss's betrayal unfold in real time. I lay back, heart racing, not from pain, but from sudden clarity. Edward had always been paranoid about Arcus poaching his talent. He constantly reminded us that loyalty was non-negotiable. He had accused me more than once of being too friendly with rival executives at industry events. And yet, in his arrogance, he had handed me, on a silver platter, to the very man he feared most. Looks like your company doesn't value you, Daniel said, his eyes steady on mine. But I suspect your clients might feel differently. His words sent a shiver through me. He was right. Over the past 7 years, I had cultivated relationships with some of the most demanding corporate clients in North America. Relationships built on trust, long nights, and countless sacrifices. Edward thought he could simply erase me from those accounts, but he didn't understand the difference between contracts and loyalty. I pressed my lips together, replaying the message in my mind. Unreliable employees like you. Edward knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted to brand me as weak, incapable, replaceable. He thought firing me in a hospital bed would keep me silent, humiliated, too broken to fight back. But instead, something inside me hardened. The pity I'd felt for myself moments earlier was gone. In its place, a colder, sharper determination took root. Daniel was still watching me, waiting for my response. I realized then that this was not just a moment of loss. It was an opportunity. A door closing in one place had just opened in another, in the most unlikely of rooms, a shared hospital ward. I turned the phone screen toward him again, the cruel words glowing against the sterile white walls. My voice was steady now. Maybe it's time I stopped being loyal to the wrong people. His eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of a smile. Now that, he said, is something we should talk about. At that moment, I understood. Edward Collins had not just fired me. He had set the stage for his own downfall. He didn't know it yet, but the game had already shifted, and I wasn't going to play by his rules anymore. The next morning, the smell of antiseptic filled the room, mingling with the faint aroma of burnt coffee from a nurse's cup left on the counter. My body ached from the surgery, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my pride. I lay there staring at the ceiling tiles, replaying Edward's text in my mind like a broken record. Unreliable employees like you don't deserve a place here. For 7 years, I had bled for that company. I had canceled vacations, missed weddings, even skipped my niece's first birthday to finalize a contract in Toronto. And Edward had dismissed it all with 3 sentences on a screen. I turned my head. Daniel Whitmore was awake, propped against his pillows with a notepad on his lap. He looked more like a man in a boardroom than a patient recovering from surgery. His pen moved quickly across the page, then stopped as if he'd sensed me watching. "You didn't sleep much," he said without looking up. "No," I admitted. "Hard to when your entire career just goes up in smoke." He glanced at me, his expression calm, analytical. "Not smoke." Opportunity, I gave a short, humorless laugh. "That's one way to spin it." "Not spin," he corrected softly. "Perspective." "Tell me something, Melissa. How many clients did you personally manage at Hallstrom?" The question caught me off guard. Directly? 9 major accounts. Indirectly, 25, maybe 30. And how much revenue do those accounts represent? I hesitated. This was the kind of information Edward would kill me for sharing. But then again, Edward had already discarded me. What loyalty did I owe him now? About $45 million annually, I said. Daniel's eyebrow arched just slightly. And they trusted you? I thought of late-night calls with CFOs panicking over deadlines, the quiet thanks from executives after I solved crises that could have cost them millions. Trust wasn't even the right word. Many of them had built their expansion plans around my advice. They trusted me, I said firmly. Daniel set his pen down and leaned back. For a long moment, he studied me, his eyes weighing possibilities. Finally, he spoke. "Melissa, I'm going to be direct. Arcus has been trying to penetrate Hallstrom's client base for years, but what we lacked wasn't strategy or resources. It was someone like you. Someone who understands both the numbers and the people behind them. If you were to walk through our doors tomorrow, I can promise you 2 things. Freedom from Edward's shadow and the authority to build something of your own." My breath caught. It sounded too perfect, too sudden. "Are you offering me a job? Here? In a hospital bed?" He smiled faintly. "Opportunities don't wait for perfect circumstances. You know that better than anyone." My mind spun. It felt reckless, almost surreal. But deep down, I knew he was right. I had never been a cog in Edward's machine. I had been the engine, and Edward had cut me loose without realizing I could power something else entirely. Still, fear gnawed at me. Edward will come after me. He'll claim non-compete. He'll threaten lawsuits. Daniel nodded. He'll bluster, of course. Men like him always do, but tell me, where is Arcus headquartered? New York. And Hallstrom? Chicago. He spread his hands. Different jurisdictions, and more importantly, courts rarely enforce non-competes when someone is fired without cause. You're free, Melissa. Freer than you realize. For the first time since the text, I felt a flicker of hope. I imagined Edward's face when he realized his attempt to humiliate me had opened the door for his fiercest rival. I imagined Trevor, his hand-picked protege, fumbling through client calls he didn't understand. Daniel picked up his pen again. "Think carefully. he said. I don't want an answer out of anger. But I do want you to see this moment for what it is. You have leverage. Your boss thought he was ending your career, but he may have just launched it. The nurse came in then, fussing with IV bags, breaking the intensity of the moment. But Daniel's words kept echoing in my mind long after she left. That afternoon, I called my husband, Mark. His voice was strained with worry. How are you holding up? I'll survive, I said. But, Mark, something unexpected happened. You're not going to believe who's in the bed next to me. When I told him, he was silent for a beat, then let out a low whistle. If that's not fate, I don't know what is. I smiled for the first time in days. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe it was just Edward's arrogance catching up with him. Either way, the ground beneath me was shifting. That night, as the ward lights dimmed and the hospital fell into uneasy silence, I drafted a list on the back of my discharge papers. Names, phone numbers, companies, people who had trusted me, depended on me, clients who wouldn't tolerate being handed off to Edward's nephew or some inexperienced replacement. By the time I put the pen down, I realized something simple and undeniable. Edward hadn't just fired me. He had freed me, and soon he would regret it. The following Tuesday, I was discharged. The nurse helped me into my coat, the stiffness in my abdomen reminding me with each step that I wasn't ready for a fight, at least not physically. But my mind had never been sharper. Daniel had been discharged the day before. Before leaving, he'd leaned over and said quietly, I'll have my office call you. Rest for now, but don't waste time. Opportunities have an expiration date. That sentence replayed in my head as Mark wheeled me toward the sliding hospital doors. Outside, the February air was sharp, biting through my scarf, but it woke me up. I felt alive again. Not as someone discarded, but as someone about to begin something dangerous and new. At home, I found a small envelope taped to my apartment door. Inside was a note, handwritten in neat script. Melissa, I meant what I said. Call this number when you're ready. Underneath was a business card embossed with the Arcus Partners logo. I sat at the kitchen table, the card between my fingers. Part of me hesitated. Joining a competitor could burn bridges forever. Edward would brand me disloyal. Rumors would spread. But then I thought of his text, the cold finality of it, and I laughed bitterly. He had already burned the bridge. I owed him nothing. That night, after Mark had gone to bed, I dialed the number. A woman's calm voice answered, Arcus Partners. This is Lydia. I cleared my throat. This is Melissa Carter. Daniel Whitmore told me to call. There was a pause, then her tone shifted to something warmer. Of course, Ms. Carter, Mr. Whitmore is expecting you. Can you come in on Thursday? Thursday. Just 3 days after being discharged from the hospital. My body still felt weak, but my pride wouldn't allow me to delay. Yes, I said. I'll be there. Thursday morning, I walked into Arcus Partners' New York office. The lobby gleamed with polished marble and glass, everything about it radiating confidence. Lydia met me at the reception desk, her smile practiced but genuine. Mr. Whitmore is waiting. Daniel was seated in a conference room overlooking the Hudson River. He rose when I entered, extending his hand like we were meeting at a gala, not after shared pain in hospital gowns. Melissa, he said warmly, I'm glad you came. I sank into the chair across from him, my pulse racing. I don't want to waste your time, I said. So let's be clear. I'm not here to gossip about Hallstrom. I'm here because I know my clients. They trust me. And if Edward thinks he can shuffle them off to someone else, he's in for a rude awakening. Daniel studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Good. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were contract drafts, compensation figures, even equity options. It was more generous than anything Edward had ever offered. But what made my heart catch wasn't the salary. It was the title. Vice President, North American Client Strategy. My throat tightened. This is more than I expected. You've been underestimated for too long, Daniel said simply. I don't make that mistake twice. I signed that afternoon. My hand trembled as I wrote my name, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what it meant. The following week, I made my first calls. Carefully, quietly, I reached out to 3 clients I trusted most. I didn't try to sell them anything. I simply told them the truth. That Edward had let me go. That I was now with Arcus. That I would still be there for them. To my surprise, none of them hesitated. If you're at Arcus, we want to be at Arcus, one executive said bluntly. Another added, Edward's nephew called us last week. We ended the call early. He didn't even know our project timelines. By the end of the week, 2 firms had formally requested contract discussions with Arcus. Nothing signed yet, but the momentum had begun. Edward must have sensed something. On Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in days. Against my better judgment, I answered. Melissa. His voice was clipped, rushed. I hear you've been making calls. Is that true? I let the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. Edward, you fired me. You told me I was unreliable. What did you think I'd do? Crawl into a hole? You're jeopardizing everything we built, he snapped. No, Edward, I said, my tone steady. You jeopardized it when you fired the person your clients trusted most. I'm just giving them options. His breathing grew sharp, almost panicked. This is a mistake. You'll regret this. I ended the call without replying. For the first time in years, his words didn't scare me. That night, as I sat at my kitchen table with the contract folder from Arcus open beside me, I realized something. Edward thought he'd cut me loose, but really, he'd handed me leverage he could never take back. The first cracks were showing, and once clients started to move, there would be no stopping the collapse. By the time I settled into Arcus, I had a badge, a corner desk, and a stack of papers waiting for me in legal. No handshakes, no grand speeches, just a quiet conference room, a pot of coffee, and Arcus's general counsel, Priya Kapoor. I'm here to keep you safe, she said, folding her hands. Ground rules. You bring no documents from Hallstrom. You share nothing proprietary. You work from memory and public information only. If a client calls you, we take the call. If you're tempted to call first, you call me instead. I nodded. Understood. She gave me a small smile. Good. Because Edward will try to claim theft. But the facts are simple. You were fired without cause. Your relationships are human capital, not company property. That distinction matters. It felt like a shield. For the first time since the hospital, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. We prioritized a short list. Clients who had written my name directly into their contracts. Priya drafted a simple announcement for me to share publicly. After 7 years at Hallstrom, I'm excited to join Arcus Partners as Vice President, North American Client Strategy. No digs, no bitterness, just a status change. When I posted it, the response came quickly. The first call was from Angela Chang at North River Manufacturing. Melissa, I just saw your update. We were told you needed extended leave and wouldn't be on our account. Is that true? I'm no longer with Hallstrom, I said carefully. I've joined Arcus. Angela didn't hesitate. Then we're invoking the key person clause. Our board approved it when we signed. Have Arcus send over a proposal. We'll move this quarter if you can guarantee continuity. Soon after, Easton Bio's COO reached out by email. Their message was short and direct. We require stability and senior oversight. If Melissa Carter is no longer with Hallstrom, please advise how she can continue leading our work from Arcus. My hands trembled as I read. Not from fear, but from how fast the shift had begun. By the end of the day, 3 more clients had asked for meetings. Nobody was angry. Nobody dramatic. Just pragmatic questions about stability, continuity, and trust. Exactly the kind of conversations I'd built my career on. Edward, of course, didn't do pragmatic. My phone filled with missed calls from his number, followed by a text. Cease immediately. You are in violation of your non-solicit. Our counsel will be in touch. His attorney followed with a furious email. Priya drafted a reply that was calm and surgical. Our client was terminated without cause. She has not solicited. Clients contacted her after a lawful announcement. Please direct future communications to counsel. No emotion, just precision. That evening, my husband asked quietly, "Does he still scare you?" He used to, I admitted. Now I just feel finished with him. The next day, the first formal termination letter arrived. North River's legal team cited the key person clause and copied Arcus. It wasn't emotional. It read like weather. Facts, not feelings. Edward finally got me on the phone. His voice was brittle. What are you doing? You can't move our book. This is theft. You fired me, Edward. Clients are making their own choices. You think you can run to Whitmore and gut what we built? I'll bury you in court. Then speak to Priya, I said evenly. You won't survive this business. He snapped. People remember disloyalty. Then they'll remember yours too. I hung up before he could finish. My hands shook, but not from fear. His power over me had evaporated. Soon after, Meridian Logistics requested a transition discussion. Their VP, Valentina Morales, was blunt. We were bounced between two junior analysts last week who couldn't answer basic questions. If you're leading at Arcus, we'll follow. If not, we pause until we find someone who understands us. That night, I got a call I didn't expect. From Dana Patel, Hallstrom's senior project manager. Her voice was low, urgent. I shouldn't be doing this, but you need to know. Edward told IT to forward your client inbox to his nephew. He had us reissue SOWs with your name removed. He's pushing unauthorized change orders to inflate revenue. My stomach sank. Dana, that's fraud. I know. I've documented everything. I'm not protecting him. Not after what he did to you, I warned her to be careful. But inside, I felt something solidify. This wasn't just incompetence anymore. It was desperation. By the end of the week, Easton Bio's termination letter landed, and Edward himself stormed Arcus's lobby, demanding to see me. Daniel intercepted him calmly. From the mezzanine, I watched as Edward raged, his face red, his gestures wild. She's finished, he shouted, pointing up toward me. Hear me? Finished. Daniel didn't even raise his voice. You fired her in a hospital bed. Clients trust her, not you. They're choosing where to go. Security escorted Edward out. He twisted once to glare at me, his eyes glassy with something that looked almost like panic. Word spread quickly after that. Colleagues messaged me quietly, asking what had really happened. I stuck to the truth. I had been terminated without cause, and I was now with Arcus. Nothing more, nothing less. By the week's end, North River had signed with Arcus, Easton Bio's counsel approved our draft, and Meridian was preparing to transition. Edward's voicemails grew stranger, pleading one minute, threatening the next. I stopped listening to them. Then Dana called again. Emergency board meeting, audit flagged unauthorized change orders. They're asking how we lost 3 anchor accounts in days. I looked out over the city. The skyline was the same, but I knew everything beneath it had shifted. He's going to unravel, Dana whispered. Be ready. I am, I said. And for the first time, I truly believed it. 2 weeks later, I was back in Arcus's office, standing at the window overlooking the city. The skyline stretched endlessly, calm and indifferent, while my phone buzzed nonstop with updates from clients, lawyers, and colleagues. Hallstrom was crumbling. North River, Easton Bio, and Meridian had all finalized their exits. 2 more contracts were in the process of being transferred. Each conversation felt the same. Polite, pragmatic, but decisive. These weren't betrayals. They were corrections. Clients simply followed the trust they had built over years. Dana called again. Her voice carried the weight of exhaustion. Edward is barely holding it together. The board demanded an explanation about the missing revenue. The auditors found emails where he backdated Trevor's employment records and approved unverified expenses. It's bad, Melissa. Really bad. I closed my eyes, letting her words sink in. This wasn't how I imagined things would end. A part of me thought Edward would claw his way back, or at least manage to land on his feet. But from what Dana described, he was cornered, and everyone knew it. The following Friday, word reached us officially. Edward Collins had been removed as CEO. The board cited loss of confidence in leadership and failure to protect client relationships. Trevor had resigned the same day, leaving behind a trail of panicked emails no one bothered to answer. That night, Mark poured us 2 glasses of wine in the kitchen. He raised his glass, but his expression was thoughtful rather than celebratory. "You don't look happy," he said. I swirled the wine slowly, watching the reflection in the glass. I'm not sure happiness is the word. Relief, maybe. You beat him. Mark reminded me. He fired you at your lowest moment. And now? Look where you are. I nodded, but I felt the truth gnawing at me. Destroying someone else never truly feels like victory. It felt like cleaning up a mess that should never have been made. The next morning, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Melissa. Edward's voice was unrecognizable, hoarse, stripped of authority. They've ruined me. You've ruined me, I didn't speak. You could have walked away. He continued, his tone trembling between anger and despair. But you had to humiliate me. After everything I gave you, I finally answered, my voice quiet but steady. You didn't give me anything, Edward. I earned it, and you tried to take it away with a text message while I was lying in a hospital bed. That's not leadership. That's cowardice. For a moment, the line was silent except for his unsteady breathing. Then he muttered, almost to himself, maybe you're right, and hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time. That was the last time I ever heard his voice. In the months that followed, Arcus grew faster than any of us expected. With the influx of new clients, we opened offices in Chicago and Dallas. Daniel kept his promise. He gave me autonomy, respect, and space to lead without constant interference. For the first time in my career, I wasn't fighting to be heard. I was simply doing the work, and the results spoke louder than any boardroom politics ever could. One evening, after a particularly long day, I walked into our apartment and found Mark cooking dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the kitchen. He looked up and smiled. So, Vice President Carter, how does it feel to be building something new? I set my bag down, slipping into the comfort of home. It feels different. Like it's finally mine. Not borrowed, not conditional. He kissed my forehead. That's because you stopped giving loyalty to people who didn't deserve it. His words stuck with me. Loyalty. It had been both my strength and my downfall. I gave it freely, even to people who saw it as weakness. But the truth was simple. Loyalty is powerful only when it's mutual. When it becomes one-sided, it turns into chains. 6 months later, I received a message from Dana. Just thought you'd like to know. Edward's been blacklisted from 3 major firms. Nobody wants to touch him. Word spreads fast in this industry. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I looked around my new office at Arcus. The glass walls, the hum of a growing team, the steady rhythm of work I actually believed in. Then I typed back. Thank you for telling me. I hope you're doing well. I left it at that. When I think back to that hospital bed, to the text that ripped the ground out from under me, I realize now it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Edward thought he was discarding me. What he really did was set me free. And the message I carry from all of this is simple. Never let someone else decide your worth. Jobs, titles, companies, they can vanish in a moment. What remains is your work, your integrity, and the trust you build with people. Those are things no one can fire you from. Edward lost everything because he never understood that. I gained everything because I finally did. They fired me on a Wednesday. In a beige room with flickering LED lights and the smell of burnt coffee lingering like a bad decision. The new boss, Jordan, freshly imported from some management consultancy with a jawline shaped by arrogance, looked at me and said, "I'm not going to spend another dime on an incompetent employee." He didn't flinch, didn't even blink, just slid the termination letter across the table with the smug precision of a man who'd never been punched in the face by reality. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just smiled. Because 3 years ago, when I sold my startup, I wrote a clause into the acquisition agreement. A very specific clause. If I were ever terminated without cause, I had the right to buy the company back for the original sale price. $1. And Jordan? Jordan had no idea. But if we're being honest, and I think we should be at this point, this story doesn't begin with Jordan. It begins with a burned-out laptop in a fourth-floor walk-up in Seattle 7 years ago. No elevator, no insulation. Just me, a dream, and a UX prototype held together by duct tape, caffeine, and late-night tears. Back then, I didn't even call it a startup. It was just the thing I'm working on. A data platform that helped small businesses predict churn by analyzing customer behavior in real time. Not flashy, not sexy. But damn, it worked. I remember the exact moment I knew I had something. A florist down the street messaged me to say the tool warned her about a drop-off in engagement. She called a few customers, sent handwritten notes. Her monthly revenue went up 17% the next quarter. She cried. I cried. It was stupid, beautiful, and more real than anything I'd ever built. Soon the thing I was working on had a name, a logo, a registered trademark, and a team of 5 crammed into my living room, working off folding tables from IKEA. We called ourselves Pulse, because we helped small businesses feel the heartbeat of their customers. It was chaos. Beautiful chaos. We didn't sleep. We built. We failed. We patched things at 3 a.m. and then danced around my kitchen when the dashboards finally stopped crashing. 16 months later, we got our first investment offer. Then came a second. Then a third. But I didn't want the whole VC circus. What I needed was infrastructure. Servers, support, real people who knew how to scale. That's when a mid-sized analytics firm stepped in. They promised stability, resources, a future. "We want to scale your vision, not steal it," the CEO told me over rooftop drinks, while a violinist played something pretentious in the background. I was cautious. I'd seen too many founders get squeezed out of their own creations. So I hired a lawyer, Carmen. Fierce, no nonsense, the kind of woman who could read a contract like a battlefield map. Together, we built in protections, equity, decision-making power, and one clause that was my insurance policy. If I'm terminated without cause, I can repurchase Pulse for the original sale price. I remember Carmen raising an eyebrow. "You really think they'll go for this?" "They won't even notice it," I said. "It's hidden between indemnity terms and boilerplate language." They didn't. And for a while, I didn't need it. The first year post-acquisition was actually good. They let me run product. My team expanded. Pulse's user base tripled. I finally started sleeping more than 4 hours a night. It wasn't my living room anymore, but it still felt like mine. Until Jordan showed up. New management, new vision, new buzzwords. He walked in like he'd been sent to save us from ourselves. Started changing things that didn't need changing. Fired 2 of my original engineers for being culturally misaligned, which apparently meant they didn't fake laugh at his jokes. He held meetings about synergy and alignment and value-forward solutions, and I started to feel like a stranger in my own company. Then came the budget cuts. He slashed R&D, axed our customer feedback team. Change the product name from Pulse to Core Sense, which sounded less like a tech solution and more like a multivitamin. And still, I said nothing. Just took notes, waited, watched, until that Wednesday. The day he fired me for being misaligned with the company's new strategic direction. The same day, I walked out with nothing but a laptop sleeve and a half-used notebook. And a plan. That night, I called Carmen. No words, just 2 numbers. 14C. She exhaled. Still valid? Still valid. She didn't ask anything else, just said, I'll draft the notice and prepare the check. A single dollar. They took my name off the website, cut my access, scrubbed my legacy like I'd never existed. And while they were busy planning their next rebrand and congratulating themselves on eliminating inefficiencies, my lawyer was preparing the paperwork that would blow the hinges off their empire. Because the thing about fine print? It doesn't matter. Until it does. They replaced me by Monday. Didn't even wait for my badge to deactivate before they posted the job listing. Head of Product Innovation. Urgently hiring. As if ripping out the brain of a system didn't require any recovery time. But I wasn't watching them from a distance. I was watching them from the shadows. You learn a lot when people think you've disappeared. For one, I learned that Jordan, my replacement, had pitched the board on a post-founder growth model, which is a shiny phrase that means, get rid of the people who care too much. They're expensive. I also learned that they'd quietly cut employee development stipends and were now outsourcing QA to a firm known for, let's say, generous bug thresholds. The cracks weren't forming. They were already there. Carmen and I met that Tuesday in a quiet corner booth of an overpriced cafe. She wore her usual all-black zero flare, except a silver pin shaped like a dagger. She ordered tea. I ordered clarity. She slid a folder across the table. Inside, a copy of the original contract, the drafted buyback notice, and a check. $1, blue ink. Signed by me. I stared at it longer than I should have. Because this wasn't just business. This was Pulse. This was my nights, my weekends, my birthday spent fixing back-end crashes with one hand and eating boxed cake with the other. This was every sacrifice I made while others were living lives I could only scroll past on Instagram. This will hit hard, Carmen said quietly. They won't believe it's real. At first. I nodded. Let them laugh. Let them delay. I just want the clock ticking. See, here's the thing about Section 14, C. They had 30 days to respond. 30. That was the timer. If they ignored it, I could take it to arbitration. If they rejected it, I could sue. But if they accepted it, even reluctantly, then Pulse would return to the hands of the woman who wrote its DNA into every line of code. And they wouldn't even see it coming. By Friday, I heard from Aisha, one of the last remaining product engineers from the early days. She texted, "Everything's falling apart. They're using slides from your old pitch deck like they're new ideas. Feels wrong. Just letting you know." She didn't know about the clause yet. Nobody did. But cracks like that? They matter. People feel when the soul of a company is gone. They feel it in the coldness of all-hands meetings, in the way new leadership dodges real questions, in the hallway silences that used to be laughter. They feel it in the emails that say realignment instead of layoffs. And inside Pulse, the soul had already left the building. By week 2, Carmen had sent the notice. FedEx. Certified. Time-stamped. A letter so short it felt disrespectful to the chaos it would unleash. Per Section 14C of the original purchase agreement, I hereby exercise my right to repurchase the entity known as Pulse Analytics at the original sale price. Please find enclosed payment in full. No emotion, no threats, just legal gravity. The kind of thing that makes a junior associate choke on their lunch when they open it. I imagined the moment it hit Jordan's desk. The confusion, the scoff, the she's bluffing. I didn't need to be there to know the script. It's the same one men like Jordan always follow. They dismiss. They delay. They deny. until suddenly they're out of options and wondering how it all slipped through their fingers. By week 3, the silence turned heavy. No response. No formal reply from the company. But the whispers began. 2 clients reached out. Not directly, of course. Too risky. But through mutuals. The message was clear. If she's doing something new, let us know. We only stuck around because she was still involved. One of those clients was worth 6 figures a quarter. The other ran their entire infrastructure on our platform. I didn't respond. Not yet. Let the tension rise. Let the storm build quietly. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, Carmen called me. They finally forwarded the notice to legal, and their general counsel, Marjorie Green, has questions. Like if the clause is real, if it's enforceable, if it's a typo. I laughed. Tell her it's not just real, it's permanent ink. Carmen chuckled. I already did. She's not happy. Good. That was the first drop of blood in the water. Because the thing about betrayal isn't just that they fired me. It's that they thought they were smart enough to get away with it. They thought I was sentimental, emotional, software. They forgot I was strategic. And I played the long game. The kind where $1, placed correctly, could become a wrecking ball. The kind where a legally binding clause could become a guillotine. They buried me with a calendar invite. Now I was digging them up with a pen. It started with a meeting. An emergency all-hands called on a Monday at 8:30 a.m., a time intentionally chosen to make people sweat. Organizational Resilience Strategy Session, the calendar invite read. Translation, we're spiraling and we're trying to make it sound like leadership has a plan. Inside the glass-paneled war room, Jordan was pacing. I wasn't there, of course, but word gets out. One thing tech bros always underestimate? The loyalty of engineers. Aisha had her phone in her lap, sending me live updates like a war correspondent. 8:36 a.m. Jordan's wearing a Patagonia vest. That's never a good sign. 8:42 a.m. He just said we're evolving into a more agile organism. 8:44 a.m. Marjorie is glaring at him like she'd rather be hit by a Tesla. Apparently, someone finally read the clause. And not just skimmed it, but understood it. The implications. The language. The brutal precision of Section 14C, I could picture it perfectly. The blood draining from Jordan's face as he processed that they'd accepted a deal with a silent tripwire, one that I had just activated with a $1 check. He probably laughed at first. Or tried to. They always do. Until the legal department explained it in slow, terrifying detail. Yes, the clause is valid. No, there's no expiration. Yes, she's within the 30-day window. No, we never completed a full legal merger. Yes, the entity still exists under her name. The moment they realized Pulse wasn't actually absorbed, it was just leased. That's when the panic began. The next morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello? Hi, Laura. This is Marjorie Green, General Counsel for CoreSense. I'd like to discuss the letter you sent. Straight to the point. No small talk. I respect that. I'm listening, I said. I want to clarify that while your clause appears facially legitimate, we believe the intent of the agreement may not align with your interpretation. I smiled into the phone. Marjorie, are you trying to say the contract feels wrong? A pause. No, I'm saying this would be highly disruptive. Disruption is innovation's twin. I'm sure Jordan has that quote framed in his office. She didn't laugh. Instead, she sighed. Look, there are a lot of moving parts here. We're open to a discussion. I'm not, I said. I've already paid. And with that, I ended the call. Power isn't loud. It's quiet. It's confident. It's knowing the exact leverage point and applying just enough pressure to make the structure buckle. And buckle it did. By the end of that week, 3 senior engineers walked out. No exit interviews, no farewell bagels, just cardboard boxes and middle fingers. One of them left a sticky note on his monitor that read, "We built Pulse to serve people, not marketing jargon." Good luck syncing your synergy. That one ended up on Twitter. 10,000 likes in a day. One investor retweeted it with the caption, "We need to talk about what happened to Pulse. I don't like what I'm hearing." Meanwhile, inside the company, Jordan tried to play it cool. Sent out an all-staff memo about navigating turbulence and remembering our core values. I got a copy forwarded to me by 3 people. Core values. They forgot the core of the company wasn't in their metrics. It was in the people who built it. By Saturday, Pulse's biggest client froze their next round of funding. Official reason, internal vendor review. Unofficial reason, they knew I was coming back. That's when the board finally stepped in. Not because they cared about me, but because now it was about money. Jordan was summoned to a private meeting on Sunday. 9 a.m. sharp. No assistants, no cover story. Just the people who write the checks asking one simple question. Did you know she could do this? And Jordan, confident, cocky, never read a footnote Jordan, had to admit he didn't. They fired him the next morning. No farewell speech, no email blast. Just silence. Aisha messaged me one word. Decapitated. But this wasn't about vengeance. Not really. This was about restoration. Pulse had become unrecognizable. A ghost of its former self, parading around in pastel rebrands and bloated vision decks. And now, piece by piece, I was reclaiming it. Not with rage, but with precision. They thought I was gone. That I'd cry, move on, start over. But I was never starting over. I was starting again, from exactly where I left off. By the end of the week, Carmen had sent over the final documents to the board. Clear, elegant, legally airtight. I was exercising my right. And the funny thing is, they still had one more chance to stop me. One more window to negotiate. Delay, fight. But they didn't, because now they were afraid of what I'd do if they pushed back. And that was the moment I knew I had won. The envelope arrived on a Monday, 9:12 a.m. Stamped, signed, delivered. It was hand-carried to the board's interim chair by a courier in a navy blazer who didn't smile. Inside, $1, a legal declaration of asset repurchase, and a clause that had just grown teeth. By noon, the whispers turned to roars. Emails flew. Slack threads exploded. A crisis meeting was called. Emergency Zoom invites went out with subject lines like urgent, clause 14, see action item. And somewhere inside the 4th floor executive wing, surrounded by soundproof walls and desperation, someone finally said it out loud. She owns it. She owns Pulse again. But I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. I was pacing a quiet office 3 blocks away, furnished with 2 desks, 1 espresso machine, and a single framed photo of the original Pulse team, standing shoulder to shoulder in a kitchen that smelled like burnt toast and soldered wires. Carmen sat at the desk across from me, typing with one hand, sipping tea with the other. Her calm annoyed me, in a good way. "They'll try to stall," she said. "Probably say there's ambiguity." "There's not," I said. "They'll try anyway." I nodded. Let them. Power doesn't need to scream. It waits. It watches. It prepares. They had made their mistake. And I had made my move. By Tuesday, the Pulse website started glitching. Old files reappeared. My founder's profile photo resurfaced for a few minutes before being yanked down again. A remnant of a forgotten internal database pinged out an automated newsletter with my name in the signature. It was like the company itself was trying to remember me. Or warn them. Jordan was gone. The board had gone quiet. And inside the company, something new was taking root. Or maybe something old was waking back up. Sam texted me at 11:04 a.m. Sam, the last intern I ever hired. Bright-eyed, code-brained, always spilled his lunch on something vital. His message was simple. They're unprepared. People are talking. It feels like the lights are coming back on. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I opened the folder Carmen had prepared. Inside, the finalized transfer of controlling shares. my name, my company. Again. At 3 p.m., I walked past the Pulse building. Not to gloat. Not to peacock. I wore jeans, a black hoodie, and sunglasses. Blended in with the crowd, carrying a tote bag and a secret. I stopped at the cafe next door and ordered a coffee. That's when I saw it. Through the glass. The executive team pacing inside a conference room, visibly arguing. Vanessa, the new head of culture and brand identity, the one who once replaced user feedback reports with emotional vibe mapping, was pointing at a whiteboard with desperation in her eyes. I didn't have to hear her to know what she was saying. We lost control. What do we do? You don't do anything, Vanessa. You did this. You underestimated a woman who built your entire platform using a laptop with a cracked screen and a belief stronger than your marketing buzzwords. And now? Now you're just watching the consequence arrive. By Thursday, the headlines started dropping. Founder reclaims tech startup with $1 clause, a masterclass in fine print power moves. The return of Pulse, how a dismissed founder took back her company overnight. The dollar that sank a CEO. My inbox started flooding. Old clients, former engineers, journalists, podcasters. Even 2 angel investors who'd passed on Pulse in the early days wrote awkward apologies wrapped in offers. But the only message that made me pause came from Julian, our former head of UX. He had been quiet for over a year. Left the company the week Jordan introduced a minimalist data flow model that stripped his team of everything useful. His email read, I don't know what you're building now, but if there's a seat, I'll stand until there is. That was the moment I let myself breathe. Not because I'd won, but because something worth building was ready to be rebuilt. Friday morning, I walked into our new office space. 4th floor, clean, bright, unbranded, no motivational posters, just one wall painted white, waiting for a new roadmap. Sam was already there. So was Aisha. Carmen brought donuts. I brought something else. A frame. Inside it, the check. $1, slightly creased. Blue ink, bold stroke. I hung it on the wall. Not as a trophy. As a warning. Read the contract. At 2:47 p.m., the final confirmation came through. Ownership transferred. Assets reassigned. Infrastructure unlocked. Pulse was mine again. No handshakes, no parades. Just a digital signature, a system reboot, and a server that purred like it had been holding its breath for years. They thought firing me would erase me. They forgot I built the source code. They replaced me in a boardroom. But I came back through the clause they never read. And now? Now I wasn't just back. I was building something sharper, smarter, louder, something with fire in its wiring and memory in its walls. The relaunch wasn't glamorous, no neon lights, no hype video, no champagne fountains or TED-style spotlight moments. Just 10 of us in folding chairs around a whiteboard with the words, Pulse 2.0, written in red marker. Julian brought bagels. Sam had a busted projector. Carmen brewed the coffee herself. It was a war room, not a launch party. And that's exactly how we wanted it. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about resurrection. We didn't start with strategy decks or market forecasts. We started with a question. What made Pulse matter? Not the tech. Not the UI. Not the pitch. It was trust. It was knowing that someone on the other side of the dashboard actually cared whether your business lived or died. Whether your customers stayed. Whether you could pay rent this month. It was personal. Somewhere along the way, Pulse had lost that. And now we were going to bring it back. One painful, beautiful sprint at a time. The first 2 weeks were brutal. Old code had to be rewritten. Licenses repurchased. Servers reconfigured. Our cloud environment was a mess of outdated credentials and broken pipelines. Vanessa's team had renamed every key file with euphemisms like Synergy Map Final V4. Use this one. And it took Julian 3 full days just to untangle their nonsense. But no one complained. Not once. We were too busy. Too wired in. Too hungry. The kind of hunger that only comes after they tell you you're done. I made a rule. No suits, no buzzwords, no hierarchy. If you had an idea, pitch it. If you saw a problem, fix it. I wasn't interested in status meetings or branded t-shirts. We printed one thing. One sign taped to the inside of our front door. Earn it again. And slowly we did. By month's end, the first clients returned. Quietly at first. Private emails, polite check-ins. Then came the referrals. Then came the public declarations. Joya, our first enterprise client, posted a photo of our new dashboard with the caption, "Feels like coming home." It went viral. Investors noticed. Competitors noticed. The old Pulse board definitely noticed. Even Brent, the executive who once mocked me for emotional attachment, posted a LinkedIn article titled, "Why Founders Matter More Than Ever." He blocked me the same day. Meanwhile, the Pulse brand that CoreSense tried to keep running? It withered. You can't fake soul. You can't scale care from a spreadsheet. And you can't replace a founder with someone who doesn't understand the why behind the code. The media storm came next. First a blog post, then a podcast episode, then an op-ed. She got fired. Then she took back her company for $1. A clause, a check, and a quiet revolution. Laura Winters and the legal boomerang, when fine print fights back. They called me everything from brilliant to dangerous to the new face of founder resilience. But I wasn't chasing titles. I just wanted my company back. And I got it. Not with fury, with foresight. The day I was invited to speak at a tech conference, ironically the same one Jordan once bragged about keynoting, I almost said no. Too tired, too busy, too not interested in clapping rooms. But Carmen said, they need to hear it. And maybe I needed to say it. So I walked on stage, no slides, no script. Just me. I told them the truth about the microwave, the $1 clause. The day I was fired and the moment I smiled because I knew I was already prepared. About building something with love and watching it get turned into a quarterly bullet point by people who never stayed late or skipped meals or poured their rent into a product launch. And then I told them the part no one talks about. The loneliness, the weight of silence after betrayal, the urge to burn it all down versus the patience to wait for the exact moment to strike. And the lesson I left them with: always read the contract. Especially if you're trying to erase the woman who wrote it. The room went still. Then it erupted. Not because I built Pulse, but because I took it back. Back at the office, the framed check still hangs above the door. $1, crumpled slightly. A reminder that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits. Quiet, legal, lethal. I'm not angry anymore. I'm focused. Because revenge fades. But rebuilding? That lasts.